Good night. Today we're going to study about Adam and Eve. We're going to know who are they, who are them, um, as they are their story told in the Urantia book. So, who are them? Adam and Eve are called material sons. Well, that means the name says they are material. They are not exactly as material as we are on a material world, but they have a material constitution and a spiritual one. So they are of a dual nature. They inhabit a place called, can you see it here? Jerusalem, and they are created by this guy here, Michael. Michael is the God of the universe. So correcting myself, not every Adam and Eve are created by Michael, directly by Michael, but the original Adam and Eve of a system, and the capital of our system is Jerusalem. The original Adam and Eve of a system, yes, this couple is created by Michael, the creator's son. So this original couple will have their kids, the offspring. These Adam and Eve's, this order of beings, their function is to go to the material worlds like ours and to develop their race, their human race, biologically. And how they will do this? They will do this after certain period of time, after they had descendants in a number which like more or less, but in the it revolves around 1 million. After they had attained this number, they start to mingle with the violet race. The violet race is the race of Adam and Eve. They start to mingle with the other human race of a material world. Is that right? Okay, so this is their mission. When a world, a material world, is ripe, has achieved a certain biological status, a certain biological evolution, which level will be certain by inspection. When this level has been attained, the sovereign of the system will dispatch. So let's see this paper again. It will dispatch from Jerusalem, where the Adam and Eve order of beings inhabit. Jerusalem is the capital of the system. They will be dispatched for a material world. Okay? This happened with our Adam and Eve. Okay? So, on Jerusalem, where they come from, as they are from a dual nature, spiritual and material one, they have to eat, to have material energy, just as we do. And also spiritual energy participating in the spiritual circle. Remember I told you about the original Adam and Eve, which are directly created by Michael, the creator's son. Okay? So This original couple, they are immortal, but the offspring on Jerusalem, before they come to a material world, their offspring there is also immortal, but they shouldn't they shouldn't rebel against God the Father or the government of the universe. If they do, they will stop participating on the circle of the spirit and they shall die. When an Adam and Eve, when this couple, when they are dispatched for material worlds, they continue immortal, but they should eat of the fruit of a tree of life, of which we will talk about later. Okay, so they continue being immortal, but their offspring, when they are on a mature world, for example, when Adam and Eve in our world they had their kids were not immortal, although they would live much longer than we do, because because they live longer, but each generation they lose their longevity. Okay, so the first kids of Adam and Eve really lived longer. I mean, more than 200 years. This is good. The violet race, the offspring from Adam and Eve, they are of a monogamous. They are monogamous. So when they come to a world, they human race usually still mingle. They can marry many persons, not just man and woman, one marriage, but the race of Adam and Eve, they are monogamous, and they have a preparation for marriage. After they are 18, they are they can marry, but they should go through a 2 years marriage course before they do marry. You wonder how. Um, Today in our world, this hardly happens. People, if they attain a marriage course, usually it's not that long. I mean, I don't know about any marriage course that takes uh, uh, that lasts 2 years. And Adam and Eve come when they come to the material world, they come to a garden called Garden of Eden. And why this name? Because it's a homage to the capital of the constellation, Urantia. That constellation has a capital whose name is Urantia. And Urantia is known by its botanical grandeur, botanical beauty. And there are certain gardens there that are so beautiful, we are told. And the Garden of Eden in our planet is the Garden of Eden that there was in our planet is said to have been the most beautiful place that had ever existed and that will exist. It had it was of it was so beautiful. It's said in the Urantia book, and we will not have such a beautiful place in our world from now on. And so the Garden of Eden is gone, but it could be with us. had not the default happened. Okay, in the Garden of Eden, there are certain schools, not only for the offspring of Adam and Eve, but for the inhabitants of the Garden of Eden, who are not just the offspring of Adam and Eve. There are people who went there to build the garden and they stay living there, or people who are adopted to the garden, okay? And they go to these schools, the Edenic schools. The Edenic schools, they are like a practical continuation of the schools of the prince who was on the planet before they arrived, and the prince had its own school. But in the school of the prince, one learns the focus is on philosophy, moral, and religion. And the school of the Edenic school, the school administered by Adam and Eve, will focus on trade, commerce, and civil government. So the school of prince is concerned more with principles that will be applied when these principles are established long ago. The school of the prince is teaching. Then comes the school of Adam and Eve and put these principles, this intellectual preparation into practice. So it's kind of a sense in that. It's a more practical school. And it's a school whose main goal, whose purpose is socialization. I mean, the kids who go to their school, they play a lot when they are not on their proper class. They play a lot. They should play. They should run with other kids. They have their games, and this is the purpose of the school. In the schools of Adam and Eve, there was special classes to teach about the health of the body, also with exercise. And another class that there was on the garden, in the school of the garden, was about the history of the human races. Okay, so this is the main frame about Adam and Eve. They when they go to any planet. In our planet, the story was a little bit different. This school of the prince and Adam and Eve, they will one day they tend to mingle. This again on a mainframe basis, but in our world this won't happen because the school of the prince doesn't exist anymore, nor does the school of Adam and Eve. So we have two lacks in our world. First there was the Prince rebellion, and then there was the default of Adam and Eve. So when Adam and Eve came to our world, they had such a difficult task because there was before them the rebellion of the prince, and the world was not as it usually is, as it culturally advanced usually is when an Adam and Eve come to a mature world. So our Adam and Eve had such a difficult task because there was a civilizational decadence happening, but not on the whole world. And why is that? Um, not all the staff of the prince followed his choice to rebel against God the Father, Michael, etc. There was one member of his staff and a companion of him. This member is called Van, and his companion Amadon. Well, they stayed loyal to God the Father, to Michael, and they kept with them the tree of life that was there on the prince. We'll talk about it. That was there in the city of the prince. They could take it with them, and they would continue the work with their limited uh, um, within their limited possibilities, uh, uh, since they were not a prince and there was a rebellious prince. They continue to light the civilization on our world. This for more than 100,000 years, and when inspection was done in Urantia, or just before the inspection was done, Van sensed that our planet had achieved its uh, 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 biological right to receive an Eden and Eve. So the inspection was made, and not just Van, but the life carriers thought that the planet was ripe. It had achieved a certain biological status, certain potential that had been actualized. So it was an inspection, and the inspection agreed with their views, and Adam and Eve were were would be dispatched to our world. So Van arranged a commission of, of humans who lived with them to find a place where they could build the garden to receive Adam and Eve. So one place was like in the nowadays Iraq, the other an island on the Persian Gulf, right? And the next, the third, a place would be an isthmus and in the east side of the Mediterranean, and that was the chosen place. So they built the garden of Eden, and they built like that. Just a moment. You see it right here. So you have the continent, okay, and the isthmus. This is like an island that goes out from the continent. It's not an island because it's attached to the continent. So this here it was built the here it was built the Garden of Eden. So here you have the continent, and here you have the isthmus. So in that time you had uh, 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 people who were very aggressive. There were plenty of wars, and there still is, of course, but that time there was perhaps probably more. So they had to build a wall here, the minor wall, the major wall. You can see it here. You had highlands on the isthmus, like next to the coast. Okay, in green here. You had a major river that went even to the continent, and four minor rivers that would encounter the major one. Okay, so in the west side of the island, the isthmus of the garden, it was built the schools, the Edenite schools I was talking about. Okay, okay. Here you had the house of the workers. The workers were then arranged volunteers to build the Garden of Eden. They said to them, "Oh, it's coming, Eden and Eve, and they will help you, and they will live in such a beautiful, a good place, and they will have help human race, and then had such authority, and they believed them. So they helped to build the Garden of Eden. Here on the north side of the garden, you had here you had the headquarters, administrative headquarters, and on the east side you had the houses of Adam and Eve and their offspring. Here in the middle, the circle here in black, it's the temple, stone temple to the Father, okay? And inside the temple of the Father, there you go, there you have the tree of life. So the tree of life, it came from Urantia. Remember Urantia, the capital of the constellation? This tree, just a moment, I'll leave it aside for a bit. This tree is not fall. I think it will not. But I'm not sure it will not fall, so I'll put it there. There you go. So the tree of life, it's sent, a tree of life is sent to a world when the prince comes to this material world, because his staff will have also a dual origin, material and spiritual. So his staff will have to eat of the tree of life to maintain their immortality. So Van, who was of the staff of the prince, had to eat the fruit of the tree of life. Okay? Good. So this tree of life came there from the city of the prince, stayed with Van and Amadon, and it was replanted on the Garden of Eden, because Adam and Eve would have to eat of its fruit. Okay? Each time they would eat of the fruit of the tree, an archangel who guarded the tree would say to them, you see, when you mingle good and evil, certainly, surely, you will become mortal. So they would hear that each time they would eat of fruit of the tree of life. So good. I think we should stop by here because it's 25 minutes now. We can see it another time when we continue the story of Adam and Eve. I will thank you for now and good night.